it's assumption traps. We get caught by assumption traps in many cases. And what that means is we make an assumption and we work on that assumption as if it's fact without actually proving that first. And I think the biggest one that many of us make is is assuming that the problem exists. And that is the first thing we should do. Does this problem genuinely exist for the target market that you're aiming for? So going back to your question, those products that really succeed are the ones that genuinely know their target market and what problem they're solving for them. And in some cases, they may start off with a very niche target market just to really hit home and to grow off that niche target market, which allows them to expand. Those that often fail, I'm not saying in all cases, is they don't even understand their target market, or they're trying to go too broad with their target market, trying to satisfy too many people, and that's and then build a solution for them. And that's an understandable mistake to make because we're quite nervous about, okay, if I just hit this small niche, um, can I do enough? And hence we try to hedge our bets. Whereas my recommendation is really to focus on a niche target market that has a genuine problem that you can solve. It reminds me of, as you say, I came from a technical background. I had to learn how to sell and market products. And someone once told me that the best way to sell something is either through pain or greed. And so if you can solve a pain, people are much more likely to buy than anything else. Greed, yes, absolutely. So if you can look for a pain to solve, you're much more likely to build a better product, which just makes it much easier to sell later on.
What would you say are some of the steps that people should take to get the confidence of the items that you talked about? Like they go, okay, niche, I have people who are interested, but is that enough? Right? When do I start moving into a broader scale? When do I start actually putting more money into it? How much time should I put into it if I do actually have a good idea? Like, what are some of the things that people can do to at least check off the boxes? Go, okay, I passed this test. Yeah, I passed this test. Yeah, I can move on to the next level. What do should people do?
Great question. And that's pretty much what the SALT test does. It walks you through that. And the first step really is as I've just mentioned, is understand your target market and the problem you're solving for them. And there are many ways you can do that. So you can go online and see if people are talking about this problem. The best way though is to find people within that target market and have open discussions with them. And the trick here is not to ask them, say, if you had this problem, would you use this solution? You just talk to them about, understand their problems, and then the next step is how do they currently solve those problems? And that will give you an insight into your competition. And sometimes the competition isn't a direct brand. Sometimes people say, oh yeah, the example I use is digital birthday cards. And the problem is I've forgotten to send someone a birthday card, and hence I'm going to send them a digital birthday card using my service. And someone might come across and go, well, actually, I just use WhatsApp, and that's competition. And
Oh
so
yeah.
the first steps is who's your target market, what problem are they solving, who's your competition, and is it a big enough problem for them to solve? Do they go somewhere else to solve this problem? Because if they just, oh, I just use this, then it's not a big enough problem to solve. Once you've got that validated, then the next step is to try and build something, a prototype, as light as possible, and you try to sell it to them. And in many cases, what people do is they just have a landing page. So people come onto the landing page, it would describe the product, and you say, if you want to find out more, put an email address in and submit. And now some people say, well, it's just an email address, but we don't give our email addresses lightly because we know that someone's going to market to us. So it is actually a genuine sort of intent to find out more. So that's a very light way to do it, and a way I would recommend. But then you can use those email addresses to engage with those people and start to use them for your prototypes, your MVP.